Hello everyone, welcome to Arduino Cloud Cafe, where we explore how Arduino and the partners are transforming industries. So I'm Andrea Riquetta, I'm Principal Product Evangelist here in Arduino. I will be your host today, and I'm thrilled to have you today. Today's session is all about how Arduino and AWS are simplifying industrial IoT with complete solutions in terms of remote monitoring and control, and showcased by our special guest from Atlas Machine and Supply. So what you can expect from this session, so we'll show you some cool demos on how Atlas Machine and using Arduino and AWS to modernize their operations. You'll explore the Arduino ecosystem and learn some technical and practical tips on how to collect data quickly, retrofit older machines, and turning operations insights into real business value. So one thing, don't forget to ask your questions during the session. We will cover at the end during our live Q&A. So now take your coffee or your cup of tea, fasten your seatbelt, and let's get started. So I'm very happy to introduce Richie Gimmel, the CEO of Atlas Machine and Supply. Ciao, Richie.
Ciao, Andrea. Thank you for having us on today. We're excited to be here and share our story.
Yeah, that's great. So the next is Daniel Kent, that is IoT the Development Director at Atlas Machine. Ciao, Daniel.
Hey, thank you all for having us. Super excited to sit in here.
Great. Next one is Jeremy Reitberg, that is the Chief Innovation Officer at Atlas Machine. Ciao, Jeremy.
Hello, happy to be here. Pretty excited to see what we're going to do today.
That's great. And the last one is Gabriel Berold, that is Senior Manufacturing Partner Solution Architect at AWS. Ciao, Gabriel.
Hey, Andrea. Thanks for having us.
That's great. So I will start to set the conversation because I went through some events in the last few weeks. And one thing that happened, to me is that I realized that I talk with a lot of companies, medium, small, big companies, and we are in 2024. And there are a lot of companies that are still managing equipments, big equipments, larger, expensive equipments, but probably old, and they don't have data. They don't know how are they working. They are just, for example, providing, maintenance based on time-based, so on regular maintenance, but they are not aware of, how the machine is working. They don't have any kind of data, and even for older machines that are probably born not connected. So we are talking about IoT, so connected machine, but there are a lot of big equipments, expensive, that are not connected. But now there's a lot of ways you can connect your machines, and today we will see one of them. And so I was wondering, that there's a lot still to do in this scenario in order to get the most from our equipment. And today we will see how using Arduino technologies, using AWS technology, mixing them together to get the best out of them. So the final goal is to have our equipment monitored, to get real insights, to get not only business value out of them, but also technical. So thinking about unplanned, and I will talk later, but unplanned downtime or alerting. So there's a lot of things that you can do with the data. So I would like to start with Richie. And so Richie, would you mind to provide a quick overview of your company and explaining how everything started? Because I've heard about something on the starter kit some times ago, but can you tell us more?
Yeah. So first, I'll tell you a little bit about Atlas Machine. Our full company name is Atlas Machine and Supply. We are an old business located in Louisville, Kentucky. in the USA. We were founded in 1907 originally, and we have offices all through the Midwest here in America. So Kentucky, Ohio, Tennessee, Indiana. And part of what we do, a big part of our business is selling and servicing industrial air compressors and related equipment. If you aren't familiar with how compressed air is used by manufacturers, it's really used like a utility for the plant. So every factory, doesn't matter how big or small, will have some sort of compressed air system. Larger factories will have some that are quite large. So hundreds of kilowatts of power used to compress air. And this air is sent all through the factory, and it's used in various processes that are critical to the production in whatever they're manufacturing. So that's really what we do. We've done that for a long time. We have product lines, several product lines that we carry. We're the representative for the manufacturers. And then we have a fleet of service technicians that go out and perform maintenance on this equipment. So the nature of compressed air is that there's a lot of maintenance involved, and it's very critical to the operation of the factory. If the air system fails, the factory is not able to operate. So production goes to zero. That's not good. People are pretty unhappy when they can't make what they need to make. So our job is to help keep them doing that as much as possible.
That's great. Yeah. And so how everything started. So can you tell us a little bit more on that?
I think our journey with Arduino started through watching some YouTube videos with my kid. We are pretty big fans of a guy named Mark Rober that does some great engineering and tech type videos. I've got two sons, so we pass the time seeing what he's up to, and he's always doing some pretty cool stuff. And we noticed that one of the things that he was doing was using Arduino to make various different devices. And the video that caught my attention is he was making these glitter bombs for sort of a prank to play on people that would steal packages off his porch. So when they would basically take the package, this thing would throw glitter everywhere and take a video of it and just make a giant mess as a way to kind of prank the people we call them porch pirates in America. So anyway, he walked through how he designed and built the thing, and he was talking about it all being controlled by this thing called an Arduino microcontroller. I hadn't heard of that before, but it looked pretty neat. So got online with my kids, and we ordered a starter kit to make just a basic weather station. And that was kind of our first foray into seeing what Arduino could do. We already had a familiarity with AWS for our business. We've used S3 and Redshift for organizing data for business intelligence. And so my first project was to take this weather station, to put it at a property out west, and then collect data on it and just see if we can make a little app so we could see basic weather information about the place out west. From anywhere in the world. And we were able to do that using basically IoT core, I think is what it's called in AWS, and a few various other products in AWS to ultimately make a little quick site app that we could monitor the weather on our phone. And so that was how we got introduced to it. And then, of course, I started thinking about how this may be able to be leveraged for business. And I felt like there was a big opportunity and a big unmet need with the compressors that we service, and that you have these large, expensive assets that are critical to the operation of the factory, and the customer knows very little about them. They're they can have easily several $100,000 US dollars of investment in these assets. They're often kind of off in a corner of the factory. They're kind of out of sight, out of mind, and don't get a lot of attention until there's a problem. So that's not good. We want to try to keep problems from happening. So we ultimately developed this product, Atlas IQ, that is able to monitor these compressors and give the customer insights from anywhere in the world about what's happening with this critical plant equipment. So that's our story in a nutshell of how we went from YouTube to business.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know if you want to reach you or Danny, you want to show us, how this works. So what you have inside now in Atlas using Arduino Cloud.
Yeah, and maybe as you bring this up, right, I think another good point, Richie, that you were making, and that's something we see a lot in manufacturers, is like finding like controls engineer, finding people that have ability with like all of these older legacy like proprietary systems. It's actually really hard to find like the people that have the skills. So when you can take something that, a lot of people have been using for like home, right? Like you play with your kids. Like Arduino is so much out there, and like from a community perspective, that like when you can leverage the same tools for more industrial use cases, like it really helps. I think for like newer workforce to also keep them engaged. It's more interesting to like program with like the Arduino sketch editor than some old like PLC tools that you have to write some like ladder logic. It's much more difficult to find the right people to do all of this.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to touch on, Gabriel, and I think Danny could speak to that as well as Jeremy. I think part of what made this possible for us is it's so accessible. It is kind of IoT for everyone. We are all kind of sort of technical people, but we're not data engineers. We're not controls engineers. We don't have that type of experience. And we were really able to take just the concept and combine it with a little bit of curiosity and get to a product pretty quickly. So Danny, do you want to talk a little bit about what it was like learning how to use Arduino to do what we were trying to do, and maybe talk about your background a little bit too?
Yeah, so I was formerly a technician working on these, our air compressors on a daily basis out in the field. Kind of specialized more so in the electrical side of it. Some other controls and things that some other techs weren't, taking priority on. So whenever this came about, we were actually in the works with. It's not a competitor, but somebody that was kind of coming around with a similar offering. Richie with the whole glitter bomb and YouTube decided, hey, let's go our own direction with this. I'd been involved in it and pulled me in with very limited know-how on terms of programming, but I knew the compressed air world. I knew them inside and out. So with what Arduino's offering was, especially with IDE, where I first started playing, made it super, super simple for me to feel extremely confident in what I was doing. It's a big leap coming from, blue collar day in and day out to, more behind the computer workflow. So now I don't feel limited by any means. If there's anything out there, we can tackle it. And Arduino really made that possible. So all the sketches, examples, even the hardware itself is all so user friendly. Makes me a confident guy when I come into work every day, for sure.
Yeah, you touched the really, really important points. And would you like to share, with us some, something to see whether how you manage, the different, operations, what you have achieved, and probably we can start. Which was, your goals? So what you wanted to have from your equipment, Danny?
Yeah, so we originally started prototyping with the Maker Series, and we kind of visualized what we needed to capture with that. Some energy monitoring. Obviously, started stacking 485 shields onto the Maker Series for Modbus communication. And then we kind of stumbled upon the Opta, which fit our needs for everything we were trying to tackle, and then some. The future's there, future's behind the product. It was kind of ironic. What we were visualizing, y'all put at the forefront, and it captures our needs. And like I said, there's zero limitation from our side on our capabilities out in the field. So rock star product, and it hit every checkbox we needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that all this story is connected on how also was fast, and this is my question. So how was your journey of starting from zero and integrating this hardware and software? So which was your journey, starting from your equipment and getting up to this example where you are aware before your customer that something is not going good?
Yeah. So the journey itself, we were obviously prototyping, like I mentioned, with the Maker Series, and pushing that as an MQTT packet over to IoT Core, and utilizing some other aspects in AWS. We'd actually went up to Italy soon after discovering this Opta product. And by the time we sat down up there and kind of talked with Marcelo and some other guys from Arduino and kind of seen the cloud capabilities, I'll say within and this is no joke, within a month, I took the know-how I knew from compressors with the Opta and the Arduino Cloud package, and I had a fully working product in a really, really quick time span. And it checked the boxes. Connections, we're using cellular, because a lot of the times we see trying to go and get on a customer's network is it's a job in itself, just with IT, which is understandable. But I don't have device failures. My data is present, and on a daily basis, it works. It works well. But about in a month time span, we took the compressor know-how, an Opta product in the cloud, and we were off running.
Yeah.
That's a key point that I would make, is that I think a lot of times people think of Arduino as the a prototype product and something used to prove a proof of concept. But with the Opta, that really changed for us. We were heading down the path of kind of using Arduino as a prototype and then building our own industrial device to do this. With the Opta, that wasn't needed anymore. So now it's not just Arduino is not just the prototype; it is the product too. And you're able to go from proof of concept to prototype to product, all in the same environment with the very user-friendly, programming language that we know. And there's also you're supported. Your product is then supported by the broader Arduino community, which is very, very strong. So that's a key thing, I think, that allowed us to get from an idea to a product, really, like Danny said, in a couple of months, total time to get there.
Yeah. And, one thing you mentioned, Richie, that is like super huge to me to highlight is the support that we got from Arduino on this. Obviously, we went down, over to Italy to visit them with a totally different pathway, right? And they visualized something that was cleaner, something more efficient, and worked well, and have supported us the journey. It's been incredible. I'll present here, and I'll kind of show our workspace on our daily, how we're accessing this equipment and how we're getting some insights into it. All right, can y'all see my screen here?
Yes.
Okay. So one thing we wanted to do, and Arduino, made this very possible, was to give it an Atlas touch, to give it a feel. And one of those key pieces was embedding it into our company website. So we can see here, I actually got direct portal access to Arduino's cloud. and once it's pulled in, we utilize the white labeling capabilities that the cloud offers. Like I said, to kind of give it our touch. So we got a lot going on here, but we'll dive in. All right. So one thing that we realized from the get-go was a lot of our customers really just want a quick in and out, right? With it throughout the day, on the floor, they really just need to see what's going on with it at a glance. But we also wanted to give them the ability to dive into those assets and, get a deeper dive into the way that equipment's running. So we put out what I call right here is the system page, right? At the end of the day, majority of the time, the customer wants to know the status of this machine. And they're really, you put everything else aside, they care about holding plant pressure, right? Plant pressure is what keeps their production lines moving. That drops is when they start seeing problems. So we created this system page just for a quick in and out, like, hey, we can see here, the rental compressor, the status is modulating. There's no faults, any active faults would show here. If they went up and hit an e-stop on this machine, they'd be able to see it. And then right below that, we have system pressure and system CFM. Primarily what the focus is, system page. Let's make sure that pressure is all right.
Hey, Danny, why don't you explain just briefly what modulating is for the non-compressed air people that may be watching this?
Yeah, so modulating is going to cycle at the inlet valve to hold plant pressure. So say you got a target pressure of 125, we can kind of dial in and it'll modulate closing and opening an inlet valve just to maintain that pressure. The offset of that is running these machines in a load and unload state, which means you're going to go from, say, 110 on a load, and at 125, it's going to unload. So it's going to close that inlet valve off and not make any air. It's not nearly as efficient and obviously creates wear and tear on this equipment itself on its daily operation. So
if I'm a customer, what does that mean to me practically when I log in here and see that it says modulating?
Yeah, if you log in here and you see this thing's modulating and that system pressure is staying pretty stable, that's a pretty good indication this machine's doing what it's intended to do. If you came in here and you seen that thing was loading and unloading and changing out, every 60 seconds, like we pull this data, you can just make a safe bet that this machine's not running as efficient as it should.
Yep. So it's a good way at a glance, Andrea, for the customer to see, do I have a high level problem with my system?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then just to the right of that, like I mentioned, that fault status right there, utilizing Modbus is going to give us any active faults in that machine. That also helps us as a service team on terms of a response to be prepared. We come in, it shows fault here. Customer calls us and says, hey, motor overload's tripped out on this machine. It's got a motor overload alarm on it. We know exactly what we're tackling on the way in. So it makes it more efficient for us, but also the customer. We can go in with the corrective parts right out of the gate versus going in and troubleshooting it first.
Yeah, I think that's a super good point, right? Is the same data is being used by different parties, right? It's kind of multifold of who consumes that data. There's from a service suppliers, you're having access to the data lets you know hey, what are we going to do if we do go do service, so you can be prepared. Yeah. And then for that customer is also just understanding what they have in terms of their operation, right? And maybe they integrate this data with other systems they have. But I think that's really important in a lot of these IoT projects. Oftentimes it's only the manufacturer that is using this data. But with these types of projects, as you're making these air compressors smart or however you want to call it, now it's not just the customer that's seeing hey, my operation is good, but also for you guys, right? Before you go in on site to do the repair, you have a big head start.
Having this kind of big machineries and doesn't have anything, regarding data. So you don't know, you're totally blind, and it's not only on a customer standpoint, but also, from your standpoint, having, visibility on how it's going on, and probably having some repair tools, or whatever is needed for going to the customer prem, and with the right tools in order to reduce downtimes. I think that this is only possible having data, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I think a relatable comparison to everyone might be, imagine you have a problem with your heating system at your house or your air conditioning system. You call a company and you say, very likely it's the company that you purchased it from, and you say, hey, my air conditioning's not working. Okay, that doesn't really tell them a lot. So they send a technician out. He diagnoses the problems with the system, and he says, okay, I'm going to need this part. I don't have it with me. We'll have to get it ordered for you. Then, he goes back and gets it ordered. Then he has to schedule to come back again. If he's able to understand what's potentially wrong with that system prior to making the visit, he may be able to come more prepared. He may be able to work with you to make a better plan. So just having that knowledge when we send technicians out to work on these air systems, it is really critical to allow us to provide the best service possible and ultimately keep the customer's machine running as much as possible.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that is possible only, showing data. So I would like to introduce another topic that is connected to concerns and challenges. So it would be nice to understand, I've heard that, maintenance complexity, unplanned downtime, it's one of the, big concerns about, equipment. So 82% of industrial customers faced an unscheduled downtime. So from your perspective, before and now, what changed from your point of view? So which kind of value you provided to your customers, and some experience about how probably it's also easier for you to plan this kind of activity, maintenance, or reduce downtime, right? So which are the main achievements you have reached?
Yeah, there's plenty of scenarios. We're inside of this, these variables and everything we've created to pull this data in. We've created triggers, which, for example, like temperature, there's typically a shutdown on these compressors at like 235. One thing we put in there is we put some wiggle room in and set a trigger for like high temperatures at like 215. So we can, get with the customer, and the event, let's say a compressor hits 216, right? We got a push notification or an email. At that point, we got some wiggle room to communicate with that customer and say, hey, you're trending towards shutdown on high temperature. Let's get out there and let's take a look and see what's going on. You low on oil? Is your cooler's dirty, or whatever the situation is? And that's happened multiple times. And it's definitely just real world insights to the way they're running on a daily basis. We've had other situations to where I've actually, it was kind of funny. I had a customer up in northern Indiana, and I actually called him immediately because I noticed a loss of voltage. And he kind of chuckled at me. He said, "Man, how'd you catch that?" I said, I got notifications, everything pushed out. He said, "Yeah, we just had a complete power failure at the plant." He said, "And this didn't happen, a minute ago." He said, "I'm actually wildly impressed that you called when you did." And at that point, I was able to help him get everything back up and running once power came back online. So it's very beneficial. And I've not had a customer that didn't appreciate it once it was installed.
That's great to hear. And and now I would like to understand from Gabriel. So we've seen, the ecosystem of Arduino. So starting from the hardware up to the cloud, that, by the ways based on AWS. But like the Opta that can seamless, collect, process data locally at the edge. But can you walk us through on how AWS can take this data and then moving up to a next level? So in terms of integration, because this is the first stage, I would say that there's plenty of opportunities out there, and so would you like to also to show us something?
Sure, absolutely. Let me maybe share my screen as well. And I think one important piece to start with this is a little bit like we were saying, right? Arduino is often seen as kind of this like prototype. We get the same question from like an AWS perspective, like, oh, why is AWS like relevant in the manufacturing space, right? A lot of people initially see us as pure like cloud computing, which obviously is our core competency, but the whole manufacturing space is a really key piece for AWS, and it makes sense from just our origin story of being born from complex automation and factory operations at Amazon, right? This has always been a key piece of how we not only develop our services. So we talked a little bit on the IoT piece, but all the way up to the stores, the machine learning, but also the partnerships that we have, right? The partnerships we have with Arduino and other partners in the industrial space is a really key piece for us to help our customers. And then the initial like question we always get, and that's every IoT project, right, is, okay, we get visibility. And from an IoT perspective, people always think about this like the first piece on the slide, right? This equipment telemetry. And telemetry is obviously very important, right? It allows you to see what's going on with your machines, but the real value when you start thinking about these like longer term use cases is looking at visibility throughout like the entire chain. So looking at your telemetry data, but then how can you bring in your maintenance system, your historical maintenance records, maybe some various KPIs, or as you start being more into machine learning, like doing maybe forecast, could be forecast on remaining useful life for your equipment, but it could also be forecast on like quality when we talk about more the production line versus utilities. And really this kind of is like a trickle down effect, and I'll show a bit more technical in a little bit, but I think it's good to know that for these IoT projects, like as soon as you start getting visibility, you really start by improving your efficiency for your process, right? This could be things like just reducing your unplanned downtime, like what we've been discussing today. But it could be a lot of other things within the production line as well. And then as that gets more efficient, that trickles down to the actual quality of the product and your yield. So if your variable are more stable, what you're producing is also more going to be in line with what you expect. And then one of the big things we're seeing, especially in Europe, right, is also for all the sustainability programs, as you start having that visibility, you're able to know if you're improving, which is a big key, right? We always do these projects, but if you don't have a baseline, that's really hard. So all of this is great. It's very useful, but how does that actually get done? So this is what we call our industrial data fabric. That's kind of the general architecture that we use with our manufacturing customers. And I think what we've been discussing today is there's multiple consumer for that same data, right? You have the service provider and the OEM of the machines that are using the data to better serve their customers, but then the actual like manufacturer itself, right? Having that data is really super important. And then where we see a lot of success from manufacturers is when we look at this architecture here, is instead of looking bottom up, like we typically do of like, hey, we collect this data, we store it, and then we do something with it, is to think about it the other way around, right? Is to start with the actual use cases of where is their business value. And the use cases don't have to be complicated, right? It can start with some of the more simple use cases, like just monitoring. I just want to know what's going on. throughout all of my operations. And then as you want to solve this use case, you're like, okay, well, what kind of data and what kind of analytics or machine learning do I need to address this use case? And then you really have to start building like that foundation. So if I need, data from my air compressor, how do I do this in a way that I'm not just creating a new silo in the cloud, but that I can start collecting this data? But especially, I think even more importantly than just collecting it is how can I contextualize it, right? So as you start bringing like other sources of data, all of this makes sense together. So then your analytics can actually give you real value. So if I'm, getting, I don't know, like vibration value or temperature value for, the specific register in Modbus, like if it's just stored as the register, no one can really use this, right? So how can I know that it's for this specific machine? So then when I have historical records of like maintenance for that machine, I know that these two are connected. And that eventually allows you to solve these kind of higher use cases of, predictive, doing like predictive maintenance, predictive quality, all of this kind of looking forward. So bring it back to where the kind of Arduino story comes into play is now if we go to kind of the bottom left of this architecture here, we can see that, in order to do all of this stuff, you really need to leverage like the data. When we talk about doing machine learning or whatnot, like it's only as good as the data you have. So the data is really kind of the foundational part. And what we've been seeing is, especially with manufacturers, like it's really rare that you have brand new equipment that's all connected. Like there's so few greenfield plants out there. Majority of facilities, like you'll have equipment that's 10, 20, 70 years old. And that's just the reality of it. So with these types of devices that are more cost effective, you are able to retrofit equipment. And I think what's great with these kind of micro PLC, like the Opta is, we've been talking a lot about data collection, so the visualization piece, but it also allows you to do control. So maybe you're not doing control today, right? But you're creating this backbone and this infrastructure that allows you in the future, like if you want to be able to do remote control, you have that ability. So you don't want to lock yourself in to like a set of capabilities that like is only solving that one use case. Right? So that's the whole point of like building this, like what we call it, the data fabric, is what helps you solve one use case today is creating the kind of digital backbone to be able to solve like more use cases as you see fit. So this is where also, we've been seeing some of the dashboard that Danny was showing earlier, like directly with an Arduino Cloud, but we've worked with Arduino to build integration as well with some of our native IoT services, like IoT Sitewise, which is kind of a like data historian in some sort that allows you to really quickly kind of contextualize and organize that data, but also do things like prediction and forecasting and anomaly detection. So from a manufacturer's perspective, you can really start bringing these together, right? The data that's coming from your Arduino today can be integrated with AWS, and then maybe you have other data in your plan that's coming from your SCADA, coming from your DCS, whatever, right? You can start bringing all of these together to solve these higher use cases.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So thinking about the old process, so I can start with Gabriel. You work with a lot of companies, so you see different use cases, starting from integrating, of course, and getting data in a probably complex scenarios and so on. So if you have some tips, some suggestion from the beginning. So and then I will ask to Richie and Danny just to have a different point of view. So from Gabriel, that you're seeing this kind of operation from a from a standpoint. So do you have some tips for people, companies that want to start this journey? So imagine that they have some kind of equipment, they want to retrofit, and then from your standpoint, which could be a good way, to start and going to, getting data and getting value out of data.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's the typical for all IoT projects, especially in the industrial space, is like, don't try to boil the ocean, right? Don't try to, hey, let's get all of our machines connected, get all of these variables before getting started, right? I think and that's the beauty of these easier to use devices like the Opta, is start with like a use case that will bring value, right? This can be just like, hey, we want to have a dashboard for some equipment, we don't have anything. And then as you start from the top down, right? As you start from this use case, is start by collecting minimal data, but within an infrastructure that allows you to scale. So, start with one device, one machine, one dashboard, make sure that the data is contextualized, and then see if you're getting value out of it. And as you're getting value, then start, scaling that out. But I think like starting small, but with a kind of architecture and foundation that allows you to scale through, different machines, different facilities, but also with like integrating other systems is really key. So don't put yourself in a box.
I agree with you, Gabriel. That I think is great advice for just getting started. Find a problem that adds real value to solve. Keep it simple, and know that you're building out something that can be further developed. And there's so much we can do with Opta and AWS. It was very tempting to try to do it all initially. For example, controlling compressors. There's a lot of potential to do things like apply machine learning models to the compressor controls to make it operate at maximum energy efficiency. That's still something that we're thinking of. It's in our development pipeline. But initially, we really just wanted to track temperature, pressure, flow. Those are key variables. Those are the things that are going to stop the plant from running. And so it was really easy to just begin to collect that data and report on it and track and trend it. But we have the architecture in place to do all kinds of things. So I think we got a few really easy wins with our customers. And I think we're also all in this mode right now of still trying to feel our way through how all of these things are exactly going to impact industry. We know that they are. And so we wanted to take on the initiative of bringing all of the equipment that we service onto the cloud. And we feel very prepared for whatever the future holds in terms of applying cloud computing and IoT to best serve our customers.
Yeah. So, I mean, if someone from another manufacturing facility or something like that, just want to start dabbling with it, I would say do it Richie did. Go get a starter kit, have some fun with it, learn from it, and then past that, pick up a couple sensors, something like that, something that's little off the rails from the starter kit, and just have fun along the way, man. Because y'all make it really, really easy to progress at a very, very quick rate. So
yeah, and I will say, like, I think Danny's background really helped, right? Is like leverage the SMEs that know the equipment best. Don't just look at it from like an IT centric, like, oh, let's just connect this, right? So you can get people that know the process, know the machines, and then when you bring something that's a little bit more user friendly, like that enables them also to get their hands on and actually like start developing and experiment.
Yeah, it makes it fun. If you'd look at my job description when I took this, you'd probably been like, whoa. But at the end of the day, Arduino made it to where, I love what I do. So go get a starter kit, have some fun. learn the bare bones basic, or do it with your kids like Richie did.
I really do want to emphasize how accessible IoT is. If you work in a factory, you have critical plant equipment that has to run, you need to get it on IoT, and really with as easy as Arduino makes it, as easy as AWS makes it, there's really no excuse not to do it. It's so inexpensive relative to the cost of the equipment or the cost of downtime. I think that we learned that it's just very, very attainable. And we're not experts in cloud computing, programming. We know what we do. And if you know what you do and you have some curiosity, you can bring your equipment into the cloud pretty easily.
Yeah. I think if there was one thing I'd end on is coming into this, as easy as Arduino makes it to like capture a sensor, whatever, right? The other side of that, coming from someone that wasn't in the IoT spaces, what do I do with that data? Like I can see it on a serial monitor, right? When I'm plugged into it. Don't be hung up on that. There's plenty of places to put that data, to visualize it. Primarily we were focusing on just utilizing AWS's environment, and then we stumbled upon the Arduino Cloud, which we're utilizing now. But we still have infrastructure and things we do in AWS. So one thing we're doing is we're kicking that data out the back door back into AWS with a Lambda function and event bridge triggering it. And we're kicking it to an S3 bucket for another use case. So get the data, and there's plenty of options of where you can visualize it and what you want to do with it.
Yeah, that's great. So by the way, if from the audience, someone from the audience wants to, start with the cloud, you can go to cloud.arduino.cc. By the way, is also available into the AWS marketplace, so you can go there. And the Opta itself it's an AWS certified device. So there's all the tutorials that are needed for connecting. These are really easy steps to connect the Opta to AWS directly. So there's plenty of different opportunities to get started, as Danny was saying. I think that now we can go and through the Q&A live session. We'll start to take a look of your questions.
Okay, all great. So that's kind of a lot of questions. So I saw that Danny and Richie already answered some of them. But I would start with Eric Miller, that does the Arduino Opta integrate well with the latest industrial sensors from most of all sensor manufacturer? Okay, so Danny, you have you have answered that. So basically, what cannot be connected directly to Opta can be connected through the expansions. So we have different expansions like the analog or the digital that connect a different kind of sensor. And on top of that, there's also the possibility of integrating the Modbus. So any kind of Modbus sensor can be attached and hooked to the Opta. Okay, so the next one. So what is required to hook the Opta up to a piece of industrial machinery? So Danny, do you want to take this? Yeah, you are muted.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Ideally, it's 24 VDC power to this thing. To get it hooked up to machine, based off of what you're trying to capture, the Opta itself, having 8 analog or digital inputs at 0 to 10, if that's what you're after there, 24 VDC, mount this thing in a machine cabinet or wherever you're designating it, and pretty much off to the races. Now, kind of circling back to what Andre said about what the Opta itself won't capture, if you're running an expansion module and stuff like that, it's going to need a separate 24 VDC to power it. And then based off which expansion you're using, kind of dictates what sensors or whatever else you want to hook into it. If you're just going Modbus, for example, if I go stick this on a Modbus compressor right now, 24 VDC and a 2-wire Modbus connection, and we're off and running.
Okay, that's great. So I have another one from Eric Miller. He just wrote, I've read about how IoT is enabling business as a service. Is this something that Atlas Machine is considering? Should other in the manufacturing industry consider the same? So who wants to answer? Richie?
Yeah, I can take that one. And I'll talk a little bit about how this fits into the broader picture of what we do for our customers. We mostly use it as a differentiator for the broader services that we provide. So we are going out and we're selling and maintaining large industrial air compressors that are expensive, critical assets for the plant. We considered trying to charge like a subscription service for the the monitoring that we provide, and in order to give the customer access to that. We ultimately decided to just include the costs in our overall cost model and focus on providing more value to the customer. So they're able to get insights with us that they can't with any other service provider now. And on top of that, we're able to gather data about what's happening with their equipment so that we know how to better service them, keep their equipment running more reliably, and naturally that creates opportunities for revenue for us. So it's a win-win for everybody. The closest we get to business as a service is we do have kind of all-in service packages that we provide, and we include Atlas IQ as part of that. So that would be, hey, I bought this compressor from you. I want you to handle, all the service on it that it's ever going to need, and there's a fixed price for that, and that would include everything that they would typically need, with the exception of major critical failures, which are typically like a warranty situation. So do you have anything to add to that, Danny?
Nah, I mean, I think you covered it on the way it works for us and the way we're pursuing. So.
Yeah, I always explain to people, like, if you have a modern automobile, a lot of them have apps on your iPhone that can give you diagnostic information, can give you trip history. It's a way for the factory and the service provider to communicate with you through the app. I don't know that I would want to pay for it, but it's really nice to have it. And I'm sure it creates revenue opportunities for the manufacturer and the service providers. And I would miss it if it weren't there, but it's not something that as a standalone product I would want to pay a lot of money for. I think you could go that route, but that was our philosophy.
Yeah. I thought that, like, you kind of responded there, service agreement customers utilizing this for us, for them, but there's certain, like you said, there's certain situations where I definitely think there could be a subscription base and a platform for. So
yeah. Cool. Next one is the Opta certified to be used in industrial environment? That's an absolutely great question. So the answer is yes. So the Opta is, as all the Arduino Pro boards are certified. They have CE, FCC in case of radio. The Opta itself has the UL as well. So like the Opta itself and the expansions are certified for industrial environment. Next one, what are the essential IoT sensors for beginners to start with, and which Arduino boards would you recommend for this project? You don't always need an Opta, correct? Oh wow, that's a good question. Well, no, you don't need an Opta, of course. You can start, tinkering and start experimenting using our system on modules, for example. This is an option. So we have different Portenta family boards, H7, C33. We have a proto kit that it's used. It's a carrier board that can be used for attaching all the different sensors. So you have plenty of different options to start with the IoT sensor. And suggestion, we have, for example, the Nikla family boards that has on board different kind of sensors. So these are a good starting point for this kind of starting practicing. And so yeah, that's you can do in different ways. Let's see if we have how many minutes we have still. Okay, 4 minutes. It sounds like you have both AWS and Arduino Cloud for your project. How would you compare those two platforms? Okay, I think that I can start and then I can give the words to Gabriel, so we can answer both. Well, yeah, basically yes, is correct. So there are these two words, Arduino and AWS, working seamlessly, so talking each other. So how we compare? Basically, they are doing different things, and during the session we thought that. The scope is that getting the best out of both. So while Arduino Cloud is used for device management, dashboard, and so displaying data, then is connected to AWS. Using Lambda functions, so I don't want to spoiler, but yeah, there's what is basically doing on the Arduino Cloud is device management and dashboard and real-time notifications, so triggering. So an option or a way to use AWS, Gabriel, in conjunction to this.
Yeah, no, I think the Arduino Cloud is a really good place to start, as in like kind of out of the box. You already have like a nice looking platform, visualization, and everything, and because it's already running on AWS, you have really easy integration. So if you want to export that data to do some more like complex use cases, and that could be something around machine learning or just some more complex visualization that requires data from like other data sources, then in that case, it's probably a good idea to export your data out. But I would say, as you like, if you start a new project, I would probably start by using Arduino Cloud initially, just to see like, hey, what do we have here and how are we getting value out of this? And then maybe that's good enough for your first use case, right? But being able to push that data out to other repository that can be integrated with other pieces of information, that's really where you'll get like more and more value over time.
Yeah. Do you confirm that is the right thing for the Atlas guys?
Yeah,
definitely. I feel like for us, the Arduino Cloud was the starting place. It was, we have a small team assigned to this, and it's something that we expect to grow and become a more and more critical part of our business. The Arduino Cloud made it easy to go from idea to functional product. And I think for a lot of the future potential of what we want to do, like bringing in other data sources, more complex visualizations, any sort of, proprietary machine learning or AI type modeling that we would do with the data we're collecting, that's certainly part of where we think we can go in the future, evolving from really monitoring to predictive maintenance and energy control. And I think it's nice to know we have kind of an easy starting point that's very good, but also with the AWS partnership, really unlimited potential to go wherever we want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would think, from from the conversation Gabe brought up, pretty much, hey, get it to cloud, then figure out what you want to do with it. And then there's, using the API keys and stuff, get it to AWS for future needs, for future use cases is definitely the path to go from somebody that's worked in both places independently. You nailed it there.
Yeah.
So short answer is if you're new and it's something you're wanting to just see what the potential is, I'd start with Arduino Cloud, but know that with the AWS partnership, you can go really wherever you want to go with it.
Yeah. So there's another question, as I guess probably the last one because we are at top of the hour, but yeah, I would like to take this. As I guess Atlas Machine as a company, you have one subscription to AWS and Arduino Cloud. If that's the case, how each or individual customer can access and see his own dashboard, data related to flow rate and pressure for his own machine. Okay, so I can take it, but correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, Atlas Machine is sharing dashboard coming from Arduino Cloud, and so they can share with their customer dashboard because they are company users inside the Atlas Machine space on Arduino Cloud, while on AWS. They can access to their account if it's needed and get the data and get all the services on AWS side. So, Gabriel, do you want to add something on the way?
Yeah, typically, right, if you were to build an application that end customers are using, where that data is, that it's AWS or that's coming from Arduino Cloud or something else, or even on-premises system, that should be seamless. From a customer perspective, you wouldn't really know where that data is coming from. So we always, start decoupling this. So the fact that a customer is looking at their data and that the processing and the visualization is running on AWS or elsewhere really doesn't have much of an impact from an end user perspective. But yeah, as what Danny was showing, right, when he was sharing his screen earlier, that's more kind of the native kind of visualization from Arduino Cloud. But yeah, it's a little bit separate to what someone would do in their own dashboard.
Okay. Great, thanks a lot. So really last one from Manuel. Do you get the Opta pre-programmed from Arduino based on operations this is meant to do, or do you get and program it yourself as an industry? I can answer, but Danny, do you want to?
Danny, yeah, I think that's probably you.
Yeah, no, they come with whatever baseline programming from factory. We've used templates and a CLI client to kind of speed up the process. So ideally, in our world, we got Modbus and non-Modbus, right? Non-Modbus being, anything analog we're trying to pull into this. So I generated those two templates, and then using the CLI client, I can, within about 2 minutes, push whatever variation I need. So, and that was huge for me, is how do I do this at a larger scale versus going through and individually programming these. So the use case of having templates and stuff created inside of my workspace and being able to work off those made this very, very seamless and very, very fast.
Yeah, that's a great feature, that one.
Oh, absolutely. That's a game changer in itself.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so we are really a little bit in top of the hour. So I will show you one last thing for all the audience. So just a second before we wrap up. So we talk about the cloud, and for you can get a 1 month of Maker Plan for free. Going to cloud.arduino.cc and using this voucher, Happy Holidays 24. If you want, also you can use the QR code. So this is a little gift for you that are attending this webinar. And this is transform your manufacturing operation with Arduino AWS. Is it available in the marketplace, as we saw? So you can go into with this QR code or go into marketplace in AWS to get the cloud from there. So that's a wrap. Thank you. Don't forget 1 month of Maker Plan. Happy holidays 24. Back in studio. So thanks a lot, Danny. Thanks a lot, Richie and Gabriel, for staying with us. And thanks a lot for you guys, all the attendees today. And see you next Arduino Cloud Cafe. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.